Thank you. We all love a bargain, two for the price of one, but today we're going to save time instead of money by making two meals in the time it takes to make one. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to make a meal the first night that we're going to repurpose the second into an entirely different dish. Start with my spicy roast pork. A very complicated spicy glaze, you won't believe it. It's as simple as it gets and so delicious I had to use it twice.
Very good.
My brother Peter and I both love banh mi sandwiches.
This is like the original fusion cuisine, right? French and Vietnamese.
Yeah. After a field trip to discover the essential ingredients, I'll turn that roast pork into my version of the banh mi. I like to have tart shredded vegetables with the pork to counterbalance the richness. Another way to double down on dinner. Make Peruvian baked chicken thighs one night. That's going to start smelling amazing. And the next, they become chicken and tomatillo salsa nachos. That looks delicious. But honestly, how can you go wrong with melted cheese? And on Ask Sarah?
Yeah, so I have two little sisters. What kind of jobs can I have them do?
The sooner you start, the better. This is my younger brother Peter as a little boy. Who knew he would grow up to be a New York State judge? And such an adventurous eater. It was Peter who first turned me on to the Vietnamese sandwich called banh mi. And ever since, we've been on a quest to find the best one. Today, we're in New York City's Chinatown. I have found the best restaurant for us.
Fantastic.
They've got the most incredible banh mi.
Okay.
Better than yours.
I don't believe it.
Yeah, well, believe it. So, it's Saigon, Vietnamese restaurant, and the New York Magazine says it's the best one in town. Unusual tiny space like your joint. To eat this sandwich is to understand Vietnamese history. The French colonized Vietnam, and from them the Vietnamese took French bread, mayonnaise, and pâté, added their own hot sauce, pickled vegetables, and cilantro, and the banh mi was born.
Oh. Very good.
Oh, man.
But you know, it's sort of in layers. You can't get it all in one bite.
No.
That's funny. It's like compartmentalized, like TV dinner and a sandwich. My friend said,
First time I had one of these was in Vietnam,
really?
and I
When
never
you
heard
took
of one.
that trip, how many years ago was that?
1994.
What do you remember about that?
Just that I saw a guy with baguettes and he was putting pâté on it, and then they put all these pickled vegetables on it. I said, I want one of those.
Well, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is like the original fusion cuisine, right? French and Vietnamese.
Yeah, of course.
It's great.
I love these sandwiches so much, I'm going to pull a magic trick here. I'll make my own version of banh mi and get two meals out of it, starting with a base of spicy roast pork. Hello, welcome to Sarah's Weeknight Meals. Today's theme is cook once, eat twice, and I'm going to start with two pork tenderloins. On night one, we're going to put a spicy glaze on it and roast it. And then the next day, or 2 days later, we're going to take the second spicy roast, slice it up, and turn it into that delicious sandwich I had with my brother. First of all, I'm just going to season the roasts. These are about 1.25 pounds. Now I'm going to make my very complicated spicy glaze. You won't believe it. And we're going to use our secret ingredient. It's very popular in the United States with chefs. You've seen this Thai hot sauce. It's made from chilies, vinegar, garlic, and salt. It's the hot sauce right now. And actually, I never met a hot sauce I didn't like. Okay, I'm going to go get some sugar and add that here. See, I told you, very complicated glaze. I don't know if you can handle it. Okay, 2 teaspoons of sugar. And the reason for this is anytime you add something hot to a recipe, you usually want to balance it in some way so it doesn't just come off as hot. And what balances a chili better than sugar? They do a happy dance. Likewise, and a teaspoon of salt. If you have added too much sugar to something, add a little bit of chilies to it. That will balance the sugar and make it seem less sweet. All right, now let me put these in the pan. I've already preheated the oven to 400 degrees. I'm just going to get these guys in here and brush them up with our sauce. There we go. Make sure you get all of it. You just sort of paint it on. So I'm going to pop these in the oven Give them about 20 to 25 minutes. What we're looking for is an internal temperature when we're done of 145 degrees. So while that's roasting, I'm gonna go take care of a few other things, get my side dish going, and pick up the mail. Ooh, that smells so delicious. Oh, and it looks wonderful. But now, the important thing is, we need to let it rest. Anytime you cook a roast or a steak or anything, there's carryover cooking time, and also it needs to rest so all the juices redistribute and go back in. Otherwise, if we slice this right now, they'd come streaming out, and we would have a dry pork roast. And when you put the thermometer in a long roast like this, stick it sideways to get more of a reading, sideways and through the middle. Great, there we go, 145. And we're gonna cover it, let it rest, and I'm gonna get my side dish together. I've got some beautiful rainbow chard. And first I've cooked up some onion and ginger, so we're just taking a little Asian. So we're gonna start with the stems. And after about a minute or two, the stems will start to get more tender. And now we're gonna add the greens. All right, I'm gonna call that wilted. Put my pork down here and decide which one I wanna use tonight and which one tomorrow. So I think I'm gonna take the one that's a little, see it's a little less done. You can see because it's pretty soft. I'm gonna have that straight up tonight, and then we'll save the second one for tomorrow. I'm just gonna let it continue to rest a little bit. This pork tenderloin, particularly when you fan it and slice it like this, should serve 4. Sort of fun. You line them up like the Rockettes, right? Now I'm just gonna put my greens on there. Oops. And you know, from start to finish, the pork only took 30 minutes from the moment that we turned on the oven to the moment that here it is. And we're gonna serve this with beautiful brown rice that we just cooked up. Very, very simple. There you go. Part 1 of Cook Once, Eat Twice. All right, it's night 2. I've got my pork roast that I cooked along with the other one, spicy pork roast, a couple days ago, and now I'm going to turn it into a banh mi sandwich. So I'm going to make a dressing for my shredded vegetables. I like to have sort of tart shredded vegetables with the pork to counterbalance the richness. 3 tablespoons of rice vinegar, which is a very mild vinegar. 2 teaspoons of sugar to sort of counterbalance the acid in here. It's like a pickle. This is like a quick pickled salad. And then a 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. Just whisk it. I'm going to whisk it until it's dissolved. And now we're going to get our vegetables in there. So we're going to start with 2 scallions. And then we're going to use one of these English cucumbers. And what's great about the English cucumber is that it has a very thin skin, and it's supposedly seedless. We need about a cup sliced. Now, I'm going to use the food processor to shred the other vegetables. So I've got some carrots. I'm going to put them in here. Okay. Now, I just want to talk about daikon. This has been peeled. Daikon is in the mustard family. It's a radish, and who knew? I just found out it's filled with vitamin C. So it's really good for you. It also, well, here, it's a Japanese word. I also learned this. That means great root. If you can't get a daikon, you could just use regular red radishes, which would be beautiful in here. So now let's just quick talk about jalapeno. So every time I go and work with a jalapeno, I want to check to make sure it's hot. So I'll just run my finger on the cut side. Yeah, that's pretty good. And to see that the flesh is hot. If it isn't, I'll add some of the seed pod and some of the seeds and some of the ribs, the stuff that goes up the side, which is the really hot stuff in a jalapeno. But this guy is good, and this guy was its brother, so I'm just going to add a whole jalapeno. I know I've got the heat I'm looking for. Okay, so I'm going to toss this up, and this is ready to roll. You see how quick that is? Okay, I got to make my mayonnaise. I want to have everything ready. We want about 3/4 of a cup, and then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of the Thai hot sauce. Okay, and sugar. We need to counterbalance. Remember, counterbalance that chili. So a teaspoon of sugar. Woo, that was a hard sauce, wasn't it now? And we're ready to go. We're going to start by slicing our pork roast. I'm going to slice it pretty thin. We start with our bread and lather it up. And here comes our ham. This looks like good quality. Black Forest is good. That goes on the bottom. And then we have our pork tenderloin. It still has a little bit of spicy residue from the other night. Okay. And liverwurst. Or just get some nice French pâté. Now we get to the vegetables. You see, this is quite a big sandwich. Yum. And last but not least, you gotta have some cilantro. If you hate cilantro, leave it off. Okay, good to go. Why not have a sandwich for supper? So we'd serve that with some taro chips and some iced tea. Cook once, eat twice, my banh mi sandwich with last night's roast pork. Questions on my website for Ask Sara, and I love answering them. And I have one today that's very useful, I think, for moms. And it actually comes from a young lady, Ruth Gallagher, from Barrington, New Jersey, very close to Pennsylvania. And it's about her little sisters and how to get them cooking. Ruth, you want to share your question with us?
Yeah, so I have 2 little sisters. One's 11 and one's 6, and I was wondering what kind of jobs can I have them do when we all want to cook together?
Well, I love that question because the sooner you start, the better, you know, and if you're invested in cooking, then probably you're going to eat it. I think that's a great way to start. So I think a salad is a good place to start. Now, your 11-year-old is probably, you know, we have to think they're 2 different ages. But one, for the 6-year-old, it's really fun to use a salad spinner because it's like a big top. You know, you go like that, just like you would play with the top, and then you hit the brakes. Sort of fun, it stops all at once. And plus which, by the way, everybody should use a salad spinner. And then you just lift out, you see all that water in there. So that's a fun thing, an easy thing for your little sister to do. Your older sister could peel the cucumber for your younger sister. And then it's interesting because nobody wants to give a young person a knife, but yet you got to start somewhere. So you know those little plastic knives you get with takeout? We're going to use one of those today. And it works really well with the cucumber, and you couldn't hurt yourself with it. So you could have your 6-year-old do this too. Or your older sister, whatever. So there we go. So we've got those 2 things. Now, another fun thing to do is when you're making a tomato sauce, what you do is, I always start with whole plum tomatoes, canned tomatoes, because you don't want to use the little cubed guys, because there's an additive that's put in there to make them keep their cubes, and I'd rather just have only tomatoes in my tomato sauce. So I've opened up the can, and then you dump it into a bowl. Now we've got to chop this. This is something I'd recommend for grown-ups too. You go in with the best tool on the planet and just squish around. And this is something both of your sisters could do together, which is really fun and satisfying. And you just keep breaking them apart your hands, and then you're good to go. You know, when you're all done, a fun drink that could be a kid's drink that my brother invented, although I doubt he really invented it. But at any rate, we call it the Peter Soda after my brother, and it's got 2 complicated elements. It's got fresh orange juice or orange juice and seltzer. So all you do, and this way it feels like it's also much healthier than a soda. So then what you do, you could pour them at the same time or not. I think I'm gonna not live dangerously. So you just start with your orange juice. You could do this with other fresh juices. Apple juice would be good too, apple soda. And then you just top it off with your seltzer. And there you go.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, okay, well, I hope you try all of this with your sisters.
I absolutely will. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruth. Oh, I have to ask you a quick question. My daughter's name is Ruth. She hates her name. How do you feel about yours?
I absolutely love it. It's a unique name and it's perfect for me.
Yeah, you're unique. All right, well, thanks again. We don't eat a lot of takeout in my house because we just don't like it. But one of the things that we love is Peruvian rotisserie chicken. And we find it at a restaurant in New York. There's just something about it that's so special. As a matter of fact, it was so special, I've tried to bust the recipe, and that's what I'm going to make right now. Only my version is not a whole rotisserie chicken, it's chicken thighs. Why? Because they cook a lot faster than a whole chicken, and they're so tasty. I mean, dark meat chicken really has a lot of flavor. When you cook it on the bone with the skin, which is what I'm going to do, it's even tastier. So, start with a marinade. I've got in here some cilantro. If you hate cilantro, you could use some fresh oregano. I'm going to throw in 6 garlic cloves. These are sort of small, so I got a little more. So the rest of the marinade, we're going to add a half a cup of soy sauce and then a little vinegar. We got some white vinegar here, just 2 tablespoons. This is really refreshing, wonderful chicken. There goes a tablespoon of oil. And this is just vegetable oil. A tablespoon of cumin. 1.5 teaspoons of paprika. Could be whatever paprika you like. Okay, now we're going to do 3/4 of a teaspoon of dried oregano. Now you can use 1/4 to 1/2 of cayenne. I'm going to go with 1/2. So that is everything in there, and we're just going to let it go in here. Why am I using a blender rather than a food processor? Because your marinade will get so much more ground up in a blender than it will in a food processor. Don't get me wrong, I love my food processor for other things. This is how I always marinate my meat, vegetables, whatever I'm marinating. It's just so much easier, so much less messy than putting it in a bowl and tossing it. And also, this has the added benefit that after you get the marinade in there, you close it up and you can smush it around without getting your hands all dirty, so that every last piece of chicken in here is going to get coated. And we're going to marinate this at room temperature because it will marinate and absorb the flavors a lot faster. We're doing this just for flavor purposes. I mean, there's not all that much tenderizing going on. Okay, I'm just going to put it over here and let it marinate for 30 minutes at room temp. So my chicken thighs have marinated for 30 minutes at room temperature, and I'm just patting them dry. They'll brown better when I pat them dry. Then discard the marinade. Here we go. Just pat them a little bit on top. Now, I preheated the oven to 450 degrees, and we're going to put these on a rack, which means that any fat will drip down. These are rather large chicken thighs. Normally, this takes about 20 to 25 minutes to get cooked through. The good news with dark meat is it's hard to overcook it, particularly when you cook it with the skin and the bone. Okay, into the oven. That is going to start smelling amazing. So now we're going to make the sauce. And I just wiped out the blender. You don't need to completely clean it. Don't make yourself crazy. And we're using scallions. And the whole scallions, all parts, the green and the white. Sometimes they just tell you to use the white because it's sweeter. The green is more pungent. Back into the blender. And then a little bit of lemon juice. And I'm going to squeeze that right in. This is about a tablespoon of lemon juice. So we're going to use a serrano. Now, a serrano is a wonderful chili.
We need roughly 1/4 cup. I'm going to keep the seeds and the ribs in there. That's where all the hot stuff is. And because I like the hot stuff. But let me just say about Serrano chilies, they're a little hotter than a jalapeno. If you really don't like a lot of heat, I would go for a jalapeno instead. But I'm going to do 2 chilies. I think that will be better. I'm eyeballing. I'm not the best at proportions, but this does not have to be exact. The thing with any chili, in any category, is even within the same family, all serranos are not the same. One could be very hot, one could be less hot, likewise with jalapenos. So you just have to, they smell hot. Sometimes what I do to make sure they're hot is I just rub my finger on a cut piece of it and taste it. But I can tell these are hot. Now I'm going to add a little bit of goat cheese. What is goat cheese doing in here, you ask? Well, it's going to add a creaminess and a tanginess. It's soft goat cheese, and we've got 1/2 cup. It's about 2 ounces. Tablespoon of vegetable oil, and that's just flavorless vegetable oil. Now this is an odd ingredient, but it's an important part of it. This cream sauce is very rich, so we've got 1/2 cup of 1/2 and 1/2. And then we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Interesting concoction, huh? And about 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. That was exactly 1/4 teaspoon. Wow, doesn't that look delicious? I have to set aside 4 of these guys for dinner number 2, which we'll make on a later date. Now, if you really didn't want to make double duty, you could buy yourself a rotisserie chicken and just start there. But as I said, anytime you make something, make extra so you can turn it into another meal. So I'm going to put them on here, and everybody can help themselves, and I'm going to pour my sauce in there. Let's talk about what we'd serve with them. Staple crops in Peru are corn, potatoes, and beans. And we have corn here, and you're saying, what the heck is that? That's actually red quinoa. Quinoa is an ancient grain that comes from Peru. It's the super protein. It's just an amazing thing. It cooks in 20 minutes. It's a perfect weeknight choice. And this is a particular version that's red. I'm going to pour some of this juice right on top. And here's my green sauce. So, tonight we have Peruvian chicken thighs with the special green sauce. And tomorrow night, we're going to take this chicken and turn it into chicken nachos. Okay, it's day 2. I'm taking my leftover chicken thighs and taking the bone and skin off, and we're going to turn them into chicken nachos with salsa and cheese. I like to just chop them. You can shred them. I just feel that shredding takes so much time. I mean, maybe it's nicer, but I mentioned I'm a lazy cook. So I'm just going to chop these guys. I'm going to spread this chicken evenly over the tortillas. These are store-bought, but you can make homemade. They're so easy. Just brush oil on tortillas, and you can put a little chili, a little cumin on there, a little salt, bake it off, cut it into triangles before you actually bake it, and you'll have, nice homemade ones that are slightly lower in fat. Now for the cheese. I'm going to grate about 6 ounces of Monterey Jack cheese. You could use cheddar. You could use any cheese that melts nicely that you like. That looks good. So now we're going to sprinkle it. I feel sort of silly. This is a recipe, you say? But it is. Okay, we're going to pop this in a 400-degree oven just until it melts and gets hot, and it's going to be about 5 to 10 minutes. Oh boy, that looks delicious. But honestly, how can you go wrong with melted cheese? So I have some fun accompaniments. This is going to make it a little healthier. We've got some black beans. We've got some store-bought salsa. You can do green or red, or make your own salsa, green or red. Of course, a little sour cream. Yogurt would be a wonderful possibility as well. And some scallions. So there you go. Weeknight meals are that much easier when you can turn the work of one night's meal into another great one later in the week without too much fuss. I'm Sara Moulton. I'll see you next time for more Weeknight Meals.